Happy New Year to everyone, and welcome to Mayor Bradley. Mayor Bradley was a candidate for the Federal Liberal Party in 1984, and you might recall that's when Brian Mulrooney and the late Ken James helped make history. The Conservative Party carried every province and territory in Canada. They cleanly swept the country. Undaunted, he was elected City of Sarnia Alderman in 1985, and he was elected Mayor in 1988. And contrary to popular belief, and with the exception of the red tie, he has not held a political party membership, I do not believe, since 1988. On October 22nd, 2018, he successfully defended his mayoral title, garnering 66% of the vote, which represents the highest number of votes that he has received in 10 elections. He is Sarnia's 66th mayor. Now, I want you to think about this one. For some reason, this figure keeps coming back to me, but if all 66 mayors had held office for 30 years, then Sarnia would be 1,980 years old. Which would take us back to 39 AD. And for some reason, these numbers keep going through my head. But please, ladies and gentlemen and guests of the Golden Cave Kiwanis, please help me in welcoming Mayor Mike Bradley.
It's okay.
It's a habit I always tell other people not to do, and I shouldn't do that. I always say in my next life, I'm going to invent a microphone system that works. This is where he goes as a public speaker, you run the issues. I appreciate that great introduction, personal one from Brad there. When I ran in 1984, I was really the first Green candidate because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was 37 years of age, and when we went into that election, we were leading in the polls big time, and at the end, it was the worst defeat in Liberal Party history. Now, to compound that, in 1990, the only other time I ran, which was provincially, when I started out as premier at the time, you might remember Peterson was in polls very high. I brought him into the campaign about a week. They kept on coming at me to run, and I did. And that ended up being the worst defeat in provincial Liberal Party history. So over the years, I've had many people who are thinking about running for office approach me, wanting to know my advice and what I would advise them to do. And the principle behind that is that I give them the advice and they do the exact opposite and be very successful. But what I learned out of the two partisan runs, and as Brad indicated, I've stopped being part of partisan politics, I don't attend meetings, I don't get engaged in that, is that the freedom that you have as a mayor is way beyond any freedom you have as an MP. And I had the opportunity to work in Ottawa for 5 years on Parliament Hill. You just don't have the freedom. I can be the MP at 9 o'clock, MPP at 9:30, and the mayor at 10, and repeat that throughout the day, because you have the flexibility to engage in issues of interest here. And I do that on a continual basis. So this morning, and this is a great tradition, this goes back probably 20, 25 years, it was late Bob Doyle that first started this as being the kickoff to the year. And I look forward to, it gives me a chance to focus on some of the issues ahead. And I would say this to you, that I've got to acknowledge Janice Moore, who's here, who's the deputy mayor. How many years is at City Hall? 46 years at City Hall. And you think I've been around for a while. And I can't tell you this, that she was going to retire about 15, 20 years ago, and we made a deal. And the deal was this, because she's a huge Toronto Maple Leaf fan, that she's not going to retire till the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Well, you saw them play last night. Anyhow, optimistic about where we're going, a renewed mayor, a new council, and a chance to reshape the administrative direction of the city. And if you go back to the last election, I talked about that constantly, about the administrative direction. I watched the 4 years before. More taxes, more debt, more staff, and less services. And even later this year, I'll be bringing a motion forward. City Hall closed down for 10, 11 days over the holidays. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right that we're there only from 8:30 to 4:30 to access the building for the citizens. That's not this type of town that we have. I want to see that citizen service back. And one of the things that will be coming to the next meeting is to restore the reception desk there. Yeah. It was part of welcoming the people and showing that when people came to that building, there was someone there to help them. And you know, if you go to Lambton College, if you go to Research Park, if you go to Lambton County, they have a desk at the front for a reason, because it develops a relationship and it helps people. We're often dealing with difficult people. So there's small symbolic things. I look forward to motions coming forward to get rid of the wall, to open up the access for the mayor back into City Hall where it should be, right beside the CEO or the city manager, whatever we decide to call it down the road. They're all symbolic, but they're very important in getting back where I think we should be. Probably about 5-7 years ago, the ombudsman at the time used to praise Sarnia City Hall as being one of the most open city halls, if not the most open in Ontario. And there was a reason. We believed that we had information, it was your information, you were entitled to it. And one of the things I also want to see change is I'm going to ask the council to do a review of the code of conduct and the rules of order. No civil servant at City Hall should have the right to refuse anyone the right to speak to their council. And that's one of the rule changes in the last couple of years. That should be council's right. And yes, there are times you sit through presentations saying, why are we hearing this? But that's what comes with the job. Accepting, listening to people on a daily basis. And that's what I do every day, is listen to people, may not agree, may agree, try to point them where they should go and how to deal with council. It is always a tricky creature. I do look forward to some of the issues that need to be dealt with immediately this year. The detox center. 18, 19 years I've been championing that cause. It's been sitting there, and people are losing their lives. People are literally losing their lives because this facility is not open. And all they like to call it withdrawal management, which sounds to me like a bank. The detox center gives people 7 days of treatment to allow them to go to another facility, whether it be in Windsor or in that area or Thunder Bay or wherever, to get the type of treatment they really need. And if you think about it's not a large amount of money in the scheme of things, about $10 million. The impact on what's going on here and everywhere in North America on opiates and addictions is just massive, just absolutely massive. 9 people a day die in Canada from opiate addictions and overdoses. And what it does is help mitigate and all the other issues. And I, about a year and a half ago, met with 10 mayors from other places across the province, many of the big cities, Ottawa and Toronto and Hamilton, Thunder Bay. And there's not just one issue with addictions. There's just not one issue. It's housing, it's mental health. It becomes a crime issue, and too often people treat opiates and the addiction as a crime issue. Police are part of this. Been working with a group for over a year now of professionals who know a lot more about this than myself, and I hope earlier this year we'll be able to show you what we think needs to be done. We will never eliminate it, but we need to mitigate it. It has a huge impact on what's going on in the community and right across the country. And that to me is an important project to be identified. My understanding, the hospital is down to a location. We need to move this forward because it's still going to take probably a year to 2 years to have it up and running. To their credit, though, they have established a temporary facility in the hospital. But this should not be in a hospital setting. It should be institutionalized, but it does help in the short term. The heavy load corridor, which has been talked about so much to be able to move heavy equipment in and out of the community, I expect you're going to see an announcement on that in the next 3 to 6 months. The province and the federal government, if I understand correctly, have been talking about funding this infrastructure project. And in the scheme of things, Trudeau's sitting there with almost $1 billion in infrastructure projects they haven't funded. If they turn this one down, we've gone back after them. And the reason I think it's going to be successful is we made it a political project. One of the bureaucrats said to me, this is a pure process. There hasn't been a pure process in Ottawa or Queen's Park since 1867. It does not involve political engagement and political leadership. And I'm pleased to see that that's come forward. I met with Monty McNaught and Bob Bailey to push this forward, and they've been very helpful in doing that. The other issue that Mr. Ford announced, Premier Ford announced a number of months ago was putting the slots back into Hiawatha. And I want to see that happen as soon as possible. It's been used for that purpose for many years. It would help get the city some revenue back that we lost when they took it out in 2012. And ironically, when they took it out in 2012, we said to the government, OLG, why don't you let it stay up and running until you do your modernization? And they said, no, it's going to happen instantly. That was 2012. They only modernized late last year. So that's important to us. And when I mentioned Premier Ford, I am really concerned about where this is going. If you're in the healthcare sector, the municipal sector, we're next in line for cuts. And we've already been told that from the Minister of Finance. And that will probably not have as much dramatic impact specifically with City Council. It'll probably have a huge impact like it did with Mike Harris at the County of Lambton, because they're the ones that are really integrated with housing and social services into the province and sharing costing. So be prepared for that. There are cities already that are delaying their budgets because of that fact, that we know that there's a fairly severe cut coming to us in the next number of months. But notwithstanding that, is that that's what we're elected to do, is to deal with those situations, just as Mr. Ford was elected to deal with a major financial deficit. And we'll get through it as we always do. One of the things that I'm really proud of in the last number of years, though, is the fact that the level of collaboration in this community as it works on economic development, social issues. There are, in my view, 4 points of light in the community right now. One is the economic partnership. One is the research park. One is the Bio Innovation Center of Canada, which is integrated into those operations. And the fourth is Lambton College. Lambton College is driving what we're trying to achieve, whether it be with international students, with job training, retraining, and all those things. But my point on all this is there's so much cross-pollination between those 4 organizations that we have shaped together one of the most collaborative communities to see how can we deal with issues, how can we keep on changing the economy. I really respect the fossil fuel industry. We've got the $2 billion coming in on the NOVA project. I expect in the next number of weeks, months, you'll hear another major announcement that relates to capital spending in the existing industry. That's not good enough. It relates to IT, biofuels, and all the other sectors. We need to keep pushing to diversify. We really do. We talked about it, and we had some successes. Biofuels were going very, very well until the change in government, and we're not as sympathetic to supporting these industries as the previous government was. But we're getting there. And with that integration, and the research park I particularly talked to, that was a huge leap of faith by the city and the county back probably 15 or 20 years ago. And ironically, in 1989, my first year after being elected mayor, I was asked by the London Free Press, what do you want for your community? And I said a research park. It took a long time to evolve. It's a very risky venture. We still have a lot of debt at the park. But we've got close to 2,500 people working there. And a lot of these projects that we're talking about that are coming have been generated through the park and through the Bio Innovation Center of Canada. And my favorite that's coming forward is the Origin Materials, which is developing a plastic water bottle which will be biodegradable. That's a worldwide problem with a solution coming from Sarnia. So that's the type of thing we're trying to do. And my message, again, I'm optimistic as I have to be. That's part of my job, right? I'm not in here to depress you. There's other ways you can do that. Turn on the news and just listen to what's going on in the world. And by the way, when I was dressing this morning, I had to tie way down here. I thought, God, who do I look like? Yeah. But those things come and go. And I was asked by the American media the other day about the relationship with Port Huron and Michigan and all that. I said, listen, governments come and go, but the personal relationships are strong and will continue to be strong no matter what happens in our country and in their country. So I just close by saying this, because I've always enjoyed the questions here. The questions here are always deep, thoughtful, sometimes humorous, but they've always made me think about what I believe should happen for Sarnia. So my final message is just don't dream small dreams for Sarnia. We wouldn't have had the research park if we said, oh, that's too much for risk. We wouldn't have had our waterfront over 30 or 40 years if we said, that's too much for risk. And look what's happening there now. We've got another high-rise going up. We've got a major proposal for Bayside Mall, which I'm hoping we can get to County Council probably by February, which would totally redevelop that property. That takes vision, it takes risk, and listen, I will guarantee in this term of council, we will fail on a number of issues, but it won't because we're scared to try. And that to me is the key. So I conclude by saying, dream, no small dreams for Sarnia.
Thank you very much, Mike. Questions? We'll take questions before. John?
I want to ask you about a situation that has existed for more than 50 years and it's caused an immense amount of concern and debate in our household. My wife, as she drives around town, sees, or outside town, sees this sign up all the time telling us what the population is of Sarnia. And it hasn't changed in 50 years. So I'm sort of confused as to what's going on.
Well, it's sort of like petroleum, that every time someone gets pregnant, someone leaves town. Actually, I do question the Stats Canada numbers, and the only reason I do is because they don't count the First Nations. We're the fastest growing population in this country, and we're the only place in Ontario that has a First Nations territory. And so we've been talking about how do we get them more engaged, because it impacts on them too, when you get money for housing and water and all those things, right? But what we've been trying to do, and the economic partnership has just got a new person in place, working with Lambton College, and that's why their international student program is so important, is that the birth rate is not going to make the difference here. That's the same in almost every Canadian community. The birth rate, people's lives have changed, how they function, the whole family structure has changed. So the only way you can grow the community is by bringing in newcomers. And by bringing in, like most of us, is there anyone in this room who at one point their family history wasn't an immigrant? I mean, I had the misfortune, I came from Australia, of Irish parents, so when I got here I couldn't speak any official language. I had to wait for that to go through. I had to work my way through that, but that is the important part of what we're trying to do. We have a concerted effort now to attract more people into the community. Students, entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are important because that's where they can create their own job. But if we don't do that and accelerate that game, and one of the key partners on that, who I talk to constantly, is Judy Morrison, president of Clampton College, because the international students they have brought in, if international students weren't here, the college would close tomorrow. It is that part so much so part of what they're doing. And what we need to do is increase, what I'd like to see, and you can hold me to this in the years ahead, I'd like to see us get those numbers up to about a 7% increase to deal with those population numbers, because that is where we need to be. We've got the local immigration partnership working on this, we've got the college, we've now got the economic partnership working on it big time, and I'm hoping in the next year or two that we can have a significant change in those numbers. And I do predict, I think the next census is going to show that we've had an import of people, and we're seeing that. The real estate industry is cooperating with us, and they're asking new home loan buyers and condo buyers where they came from and why they came here. And we're getting we seem to feel a good number of people who have moved here because of lifestyle, not because of any personal history, particularly from the GTA where you can sell a home, have a lot of money left over, and then come to a place like Sarnia.
Bert?
On the shoreline erosion that's going on, a lot of it, where's the money coming from, covering the cost of all that?
Well, right now, it's not enough, obviously, and it's coming from the tax base, or from the province and federal government. I just sent to our staff the other day, the federal government has a climate change program, and we are looking to apply there to help us deal with what's happening on the West Globe. I will tell you though, I mean, anyone's been around for a long time, is if you go back to the 1970s, erosion control was a huge issue here. And then we had this famous St. Patrick's Day storm that took away Lakeshore Road, the old Lakeshore Road. And so it's a constant problem. I had a former township councillor just on Sunday email. Apparently there was a scheme back in the 70s to take a couple of lake freighters and to block off part of Bryce Grove and create a lagoon and piers and things like that. So I sent it out for staff. I'm not looking at something dramatic, but it's an extremely expensive cost to deal with. And we don't even just have the erosion issues out of Bryce Grove. We've got our own waterfront to deal with, and we've got our own harbor to deal with. So the money is coming from wherever we can cobble it together. The one true partner we have in this is the St. Clair Conservation Authority. They've been very good at getting money to assist us to do what we need to immediately. But you know, we're looking at where else can we access funds. Hamilton's trying to get $60 million out of that fund that I just referenced, and I'm hoping we can make a similar pitch.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor Bradley, as a former council member, congratulations on your win. It was resounding, and obviously I understand that. I've heard you talk about last year. You now seem to think that those things will change. Those things. I hear, I heard you talk about them again, but I'm not sure you have the votes.
Well, thank you for your analysis. Next question.
I asked the question, do you think you do?
I'm sorry, as you, well, Mr. Mitchell was just thinking, following me around everywhere I go in the last couple of months.
Not a problem.
But the
I'll be
fact
here.
is, excuse me, let me speak. The fact is, the council will make their own decisions. One thing I do that other mayors don't do, I don't lobby people to do things. And you'll see in the next agenda, there's a whole group of things I'm bringing forward, just like the last agenda. And I leave it up to people's judgment. Let them make a judgment whether it's good or not. And I would say to you, the public spoke very clearly, because I was clear in the election about what had to change in City Hall. And if they choose not to act, then I'll look at other directions. But the fact is, I have confidence, and that's why I bring ideas forward. And even yesterday, council adopted that they should be involved in the selection of the new finance director, which is going to happen in the next few weeks, apparently. It's something different for us, but it's just an idea. And I said, that's fine, let's take a look at that, and we'll have that as an idea. And that's what the mayor's role is, to recommend to council. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, and I'll let them make their judgments on if the idea is valid or not. And I've sat in that chamber, and I warn every new councillor, don't get too overcommitted to something until you've heard the debate in the council chamber. I've seen councillors just look at each other and they've already decided what they're gonna do with their other council meeting, not in the council chamber. The reality is, the council chamber is, you can often sit there and hear, that's a good idea, let's try this, or let's amend this in a different direction. That's what that chamber is supposed to be, a debating chamber.
Pam has a question over here.
Yeah, I was wondering, you mentioned a lot of really worthwhile projects that are gonna cost Sarnia some money. You've also talked about trying to bring people into Sarnia, as in people from the GTA who can sell their houses and relocate in a less costly area. While this is attractive, it's also bringing a needs base into Sarnia for services that are going to have to grow. So the question I would have is, in addition to the very worthwhile growth of the research facilities in Sarnia, are there plans to do something with the eyesore that is now festering along the river, the plants that have gone dormant? Is there a way to attract industry, to regenerate that area and bring in more tax base?
I'm not sure when you talk along the river, you're talking,
The industrial base of Sarnia, the former groups that have gone pretty much.
well, I think, for example, I'm expecting at some point soon to hear a significant announcement from Imperial Oil. The two sites, when I talk about the biofuel sector, are the former Dow Chemical site, 300 acres there that TransAlta now has, and the Alexial site. Those sites have almost $1 billion worth of opportunity right now that's working its way through the system. The origin materials is going to be on the Alexial site. TransAlta, we are very fortunate of the, and I was wrong at the time, because when Dow left with the 300 acres, I was trying to get them to sever it into a number of different parcels. By having one purchaser, we now have TransAlta there, who are working constantly with the city and the county in economic partnership to locate sectors there. And the reason why? Because the behind-the-fence power rates on the TransAlta site are better than any other place in Ontario. And there's, I won't go into details, but there's one major company right now, that's the attraction. You've got the services, you've got the highway, you've got rail, you've got water, but more importantly, you've got lower power rates. And we've actually, at the Economic Partnership, we're trying to be futuristic. We're looking down the road. We're looking down the road to, when that site is full, which could be in 3 or 4 years, that we have another cogeneration plant ready for us. And we're trying to generate that discussion with some leading companies here, because that's the key. The number one issue in the last probably 10 years in Ontario, dealing with industries wanting to locate in Ontario, has been the cost of power. And we are fortunate, at least at this point in time, we have a solution. So those developments are happening on a constant basis down there. These are not huge operations. You know, it might be 20 to 50 employees, but I'd rather have that than one auto plant of 1,000, because you're much more recession-proof when you have that type of diversity.
Gerald?
With the change in demographics in Sarnia, there seems to be an influx of people, like you said, from GTA, but they're all retired people, an older age group. We're looking at 30 doctors that are gonna be retiring in the next, I forget what the number was, years. Is there a plan? I know people are trying to bring it in, but that's a concern for me, just as everyone's getting older and we're bringing in a lot of older people.
You're very, very careful to sort of indirectly criticize retirees and the people over 60 in this room. But the key, there's a different type of retiree now. You know, we're talking 50 plus, and in many cases, affluence and disposable income. What I'm running into, because I meet people from out of town who moved here, I always say, why'd you come here? One is the cost of living and being close to the States and all the other amenities and the weather. But the other part is they find a very friendly community, and they tend to volunteer to get integrated into the community. But that's why I said when we're trying to attract people, we're trying to attract entrepreneurs who are self-starting, students, because the laws have changed. We have the opportunity now that when students are here, they can apply from within the country to stay. And that's why it's really important. We're going to create a culture here of welcoming newcomers, that the college is such a part of that, because it brings the diversity now, because you see all the students around town. You see them on the bus system. You see them renting apartments. And I mean, that's one of the side issues, unfortunately, we're dealing with right now, is we're having a shortage of affordable rental properties in this community. And that's happening for a number of reasons. But there is a plan. And the key is, and that's what I was alluding to earlier, especially with the immigrant newcomer attraction, is we need to ratchet up our game. We need to push harder and have some measurables that we can show you that it's added to the quality of the community, the quality of life.
Sorry, I think you misunderstood my question. I'm just wondering where we're gonna get more doctors. Is there a plan for that?
Well, see, I'm sorry, I'm the sort of person, you ask me the time, I'll tell you how to make a watch. So I apologize for that. Well, the one thing city council could do, which I'll be advocating, we're doing our budget a week Tuesday, and I've already said this publicly, we should support the physician recruitment group that's been doing such a good job over the last number of years. Blue Water Health has its team, and they've got a different place that they're trying to generate people for. But the physician recruitment, for I think the cost from the city is very small in the scheme of things. That's what they're doing. They're anticipating, and Dr. Mahoney can tell you that they know the number of returns is coming. They know that we need to brace ourselves for that. So they've got a group in place that have been working very hard, and I hope that Sarnia Council will continue to support them, which we've been doing for over a decade. Because, you know, people want measurables. The real measurable was, if you went back 10 or 15 years ago, Sarnia was the most underserviced community in Ontario. And they went to work, and they reduced it, but at the same time, they're fighting a demographic now, as doctors get older and are heading into retirement. But that's what we can do right away next Tuesday to support. I apologize for not getting the question.
Thank you. Alan, you have a question.
Yeah, Mike, I think you probably know that I did not vote for you this time. This is the first time I have not voted for you, and that was primarily because of the Integrity Commissioner's report and the Bernardi report. And several times during the campaign and also after you were re-elected, you said several times, lessons have been learned, lessons have been learned. Those words by themselves mean absolutely nothing. So would you tell me this morning, or tell us this morning, what lessons you have learned personally and how you plan to change your behavior?
That's good.
Well, you're right, you're entitled to do what you want to do. I know even the group you're involved in, Ontario, you've had issues in your group, right? You've had issues that come along. Anytime you're in a workplace, you're gonna have conflict. And I will tell you, we rejected that report. Not one person that I identified they should talk to, they've talked to. And I'm not gonna go back in the past. I ran on my record, and the public in Sarnia said very clearly, they wanted City Hall to go back. We had a mayor who was asking questions. Now, style? Yes. Hey, listen, Alan, I'm gonna be canonized. In the last 2.5 years, I'm St. Michael. I have learned a lot. And you know, you don't seem to want to give any credit for that. And the fact is, when I ran, I was very clear about restoring City Hall to being an open place. And the great change on council showed that. The great support from the public showed that. And now the obligation as myself and this council is to show that we can demonstrate lessons were learned. And that is what I'm focusing on the next 4 years. I do recall, I think it was you, when I wanted to come to this club a couple years ago to speak, you didn't want me to talk about those reports. You denied me that right, and I said, I'm not coming. I don't want to bring up the issues. That was the past. We're talking 3 years ago.
That was not me, Mike. Last year I was the president, and I introduced you. I welcomed you here. The year before I was not the president. It wasn't my call. It was a
Alan,
board
I didn't
decision.
come here to debate you.
Okay.
It was a board decision.
I responded to your question. I didn't come here to debate you.
I'm just
I
going
came
to
here-
correct your
sorry.
statements, that's all.
Well,
I'm entitled to do
Okay.
that.
Yep.
I think you believe you're entitled to a lot
Okay,
of things.
next
Alan.
question. Why don't we move on? I think the point has been made on this. We're litigating something that's history. Dick, you got a question over there.
So Mayor Mike, I know these are tough questions, but I think they have to be asked. Everybody in this room knows that there's been an exodus from the administration at City Hall, and for whatever reason, that's immaterial at this point. What I'd like to know is, you as mayor, how are you gonna handle that? Do you think you can attract people with the same kind of knowledge and the same kind of direction that those people had before? And before you answer, we've had some of them here and talk, and we were very impressed with the administration as it stood before. So I think, at least from my point, my concern is that, is there a hole in the city administration? How are we gonna fill that? Because politicians are not gonna fill engineering roles.
Hey, Dick, this is a really good question. And the fact is, people come and go in any organization. You know, one thing I see our friends from the media, they didn't report in 2014. We lost 5 or 6 top people when the new CAO who's just left came in. The finance director left, the clerk retired.
blame the
The deputy
CAO.
clerk left.
Jesus.
The Parks and Rec person left. The director of transit retired.
Because of you.
That's part of the flow. We're a 500 or 600 person organization.
Jesus.
And where I come on strongly about this, and I did during the election, is the administrative direction of the city, in my view, was wrong. It was putting up walls, and I'm not talking about walls for the public, disengagement with the citizens. There's gonna have to be a concerted effort to develop some of the relationship with organizations in this community that have fallen by the wayside. And I'm, as the elected leader, have the ability to broker, trying to repair those relationships. And in the past couple of years, that's what I've been doing, quietly on the side. We will attract people, and just was it this week, we announced a new economic development director. So it seems to be the dark side that wants to keep on focusing on the negative and reliving the last election and the last 3 years. And the reality is, life goes on. Council authorized yesterday the hiring process for new CAO. I'm not totally comfortable with that process, but that's okay. We'll see what comes to us from applicants. And you know, again, I look around and I just get puzzled by this sort of inward black approach on this stuff. In the last 3 weeks, the city managers in Brampton, North Bay, and Burlington have all been dismissed because the community is moving in a different direction with a new council. So I think we tend to think it's all this little goldfish bowl here. It's part of life. I deal with companies. Hey, look at the Sarnia Observer. What, 10, 14, 15 employees who left there in the last, 2 years? You see any stories on that, my friends? So you want to focus, and that's
My
fine. I'll
friends.
take the accountability. But the reality is that it's part of how city, I think 6 city managers, 7 city managers, it's what happens in the ebb and flow. And I agree with you, right now, attracting someone to replace the engineering head because he's only there helping us out at the present time, that's important. Attracting a treasurer, and that will happen probably in the next week or two. So I want to see the other side of the story when we start to fill these positions, that credit is given, that people are applying, just like the economic development director hired this week.
Paul?
Your worship. A couple of years ago, SLEP in the county was doing a real push on creative industries. And in fact, if you probably know, I was on the sort of the film commission that we were forming. The guy who was in charge of that portfolio unfortunately got sick and probably won't return to work or anything. And then we got George left, we got a new director and stuff like that. And that whole thing seems to have went flat. And you know, we could talk about oil industries, bio industries and stuff like that, but it's always good when you have a economy that's broadly based. And that stuff all looked pretty promising. And of course, as you know, as far as film goes, we've had things develop. Aaron Huggett, and of course, I've been working on a feature film and stuff like that. What ideas do you have around kickstarting that at the county and the SLEP level and re-engaging? Because in that process, in fact, on that commission, there was 2 previous councils. So what are your ideas around that?
I know the county, Paul, has, they still have a creative culture committee. We've had that renaissance in the downtown, the art gallery, the Arts House, Imperial. And we are getting a lot of younger people interested because it's cheap to come here and everything's affordable. It is, my understanding is, as we move forward this year, there's going to be a much greater effort to ratchet it up. And if you just not think about that even sector, but also the tourism sector, where we're developing wineries and bicycle races and those things too, is we're behind other communities in some of those areas, and they need to be ratcheted up. And that's what I hope, my role at county council, I can help push that, because it is an important part. The economic partnership, we've been talking about the cultural sector of the community. It is a huge job creator. And maybe we all have our own definitions of culture, right? But it is a huge job creator. And I think you'll see some things unfold this year that show that that message has been received by the elected people.
Okay, question?
Over here, Mike.
I'd like to know what's wrong with the people working in the city hall, that they are all in a dead-end job. You are going out to hire people from the outside rather than promoting from inside. Why?
I don't think that's the case. It's always been a combination. A good administration has people below them who can move up. and they properly plan it, right? I cannot prejudge who's going to apply internally or externally for positions. But that's been the case in the past, because we used to have a deputy treasurer. That position normally would move into being the treasurer, that's not the case now. So we have people who I know internally who are going to apply for positions. Whether they're qualified or not, I don't know. We have people externally that contact me to say they're going to apply. Whether they're qualified, I don't know. But it is part of what goes on in any organization. There's renewal, and there's people come and go as they reach, and I've got to keep in mind too, many people, lifestyles are different now when it comes to employment. We've got a whole generation that tend to shift around, and I've seen that a lot with younger people, not just at the city hall, but in the county, in the police service, other areas, private companies. They tend not to want jobs for life. They tend to be much more flexible in what their lifestyles are. And that's the one thing we're running into continue. Lifestyle now brokers over overtime and commitment to the workplace. And that's just an observation right across this country.
Mayor Mike, a very fundamental question. I'm sitting here, just a comment, I'm sitting here, a few moments ago, I see a great city truck with the shovels and so forth, and patch, patch, patch. This is happening in North America, where the rubber meets the roads. It seems that every day, this will be my criticism. Some of the roads that I'm on, maybe it's because I'm on the same roads all the time, unbelievable. It's like a cancer. I may be not seeing the positive things that are going on with the roadways. It seems that a lot of the roads in North America, they're just literally falling apart, and it's like the fella with his finger in the dikes. It's a runaway situation, as I see it. There are roads, Plank Road for instance, just unbelievable. You know, these are major roads in the city, the schools,
Good
where some of the
question,
schools
Dave.
are. It's a terrible, what's happening?
I don't disagree. I'm glad you mentioned North America. The problem fundamentally is this: the local government is only 6% of your tax dollar. And the money goes to the federal province, trying to get that money back to do the work we need to do. I'm glad you mentioned Plank Road. We identified that a number of years ago. It needs a major reconstruction because of the drainage and all the issues there, right? It's gonna be done this year. It's gonna soak up a lot of our money. But it needs to be done because just because it's an industrial area, it shouldn't be treated as a second-class citizen. But it's a constant for us. I'll give one credit to one federal government shared the gas tax money with. That was a huge step forward. But it never ends. And then the other problem we have here, specific to Sarnia, is for a population of 74,000, our physical area is huge, absolutely huge. That's why our whole paving budget went to Waterworks side road just a year or two ago. So that's one of the challenges we have as a city, the size of the city, and trying to keep up. But it's a challenge every place you go. Read an article with the new governor of Michigan. Her number one priority is fixing the roads. It's a basic thing we do. We do our best with the resources we have.
Okay, two more questions, David?
Mike, as mayor of the city, do you feel comfortable that we have within City Hall a game plan and a team together that when corporations and businesses come here and want to do business, City Hall can put that team into gear, put them in motion so that they can sit down with those people that are coming here and say to them, here's what we've got to offer you. As a city, this is what we can do to help. Do you feel presently at the City Hall that that is the case?
Yes. And I will say it this way. I do it every day. I have for 30 years.
That's
But I also, I appreciate that, but also I don't do it alone. It's the county, it's the economic partnership, who I'm gonna be talking to in about 20 minutes. We work together very collaboratively, and we decide what is the need for this organization. And I'll give you an example. Last year when Greyhound was looking at maybe expanding service here, I met with them, set up staff to meet with them. Same with the Lottery Corporation. We will still function no matter what. Is it today the best it should be? The answer is no. It will be in the future, but it's not just the city. We are part of the county, and that's a big part of what we do and how we deal with economic development. And you've probably read some stories about some huge Chinese glass factory looking to locate in this part of the province. And we've been working on that for 2 years, quietly. It's 2 years. I don't know where it's gonna end up, because there's all sorts of resource needs of water and power and stuff like that. But we did that every day, and we'll continue to do that. One last question.
Have you done the harassment training? If not, do you plan on doing it with the new council when they do theirs?
Oh, certainly. In fact, I think you come to council meetings with Mr. Mitro.
I come to all council meetings, yes.
I was there before you.
No, the very first motion I brought to the new council, which they adopted, was to have harassment training for all of council, mandatory, within 90 days of that resolution passing. So that resolution has been sent over, and I believe inquired about where it's at. So that will take place as whenever they're ready to have the trainer come in, and I would recommend to anyone that's still in the workplace, everyone take it, because the workplace has changed dramatically. No matter, forget about the issues I was involved in, it has just changed so dramatically that the words bullying and harassment are showing up in almost every conflict in the workplace, everywhere. So I think it's good for the new council. Many of them have not been elected before, and that will happen as soon as the staff arrange it.
So my question was, will you be taking it with the new
It's
council, yes?
mandatory for council.
Yeah, okay,
Okay, answer the question.
I understand.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. Mayor Mike?
Thank you very
On
much.
behalf of the Golden Gate Kiwanis, I want to thank you for the service you've given to this city over time. We got a little thing here for you. Number one is the, and,
I can all